faithfully delivering value by interpreting great books from around the world. Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today, the book we're interpreting for you is Why Do We Get Sick? Our bodies seem exquisitely designed. Over the long process of evolution, they've shaped delicate organs like the eyes, brain, and heart. But this also brings us many troubles, such as colds, nearsightedness, cavities, high blood pressure, diabetes, and more. Why does such a meticulously designed body leave so many flaws, causing us to suffer from diseases? Why do we get sick? This book isn't teaching you how to stay healthy. Instead, it looks back through history from the perspective of evolutionary medicine, explaining the reasons behind human diseases. But this book was co-authored by Professors Randolph Nesse and George Williams. Randolph Nesse is the director of the Center for Evolution and Medicine at Arizona State University. He's renowned in evolutionary psychology and Darwinian medicine, founded the Human Behavior and Evolution Society, and served as its president. The other author, George Williams, was a biology professor at the State University of New York and a member of the National Academy of Sciences. He had outstanding achievements in gender evolution research, and in 1999, he won the Crayford Prize, known as the Nobel Prize of Biological Sciences. Both professors have deep expertise in evolutionary medicine. So, for why we get sick, the two professors provide surprising and highly persuasive answers from evolutionary medicine. They explain the causes of diseases from 6 aspects: defense against infection, new environments, genes, trade-offs, and historical issues. It sounds quite mysterious. Now, let's explain them one by one. First, disease may be a defensive mechanism. Many symptoms, what appears to be a disease on the surface, is actually the body's defense against foreign invaders. The authors first posed this question. Suppose in the cat and mouse struggle, you're on the mouse's side. The mouse says it hates the cat's smell. Smelling it makes it nervous and lose appetite. Now, there happens to be a drug that dulls the mouse's sense of smell, making it unable to detect the cat. So, would you give it this drug? Obviously, no sane person would give the mouse this drug because it would prevent the mouse from detecting the cat, making it impossible to avoid the cat's claws in time. That's much worse than losing appetite. Many disease symptoms in humans are based on the same logic. Those symptoms that make us uncomfortable are often meant to solve more serious problems. For example, fever and increased body temperature can boost the immune system's activity, enhancing its efficiency in fighting bacteria. And then more and more doctors realize that rashly prescribing fever-reducing drugs for children may not be the best choice. Dennis Stevenson, a medical professor at the University of Washington, says that in some cases, fever-reducing treatment for patients with fever could lead to septic shock, artificially reducing fever. It can hinder the immune system from functioning, leading to severe consequences, even endangering life. A similar example involves pain. There's a disease called hereditary sensory and autonomic neuropathy. Patients with this disease are born unable to feel pain, and their lives can be very tragic. When normal people touch something scalding hot, the pain sensation from the skin makes them quickly pull their hand back. But a person without pain sensation feels no pain at all. They would keep holding the hot object until severely burned. And so, in fact, a series of follow-up studies found that people born unable to feel pain almost never live past 30. There are many other examples, such as vomiting to expel toxins from the stomach and coughing to expel bacteria from the respiratory tract. In summary, from an evolutionary perspective, when the human body is disrupted and cannot function normally, it actively exhibits symptoms that make us uncomfortable. This way, it draws our attention and forces us to take emergency measures to prevent worsening. Symptoms like fever, pain, vomiting, and coughing are not defects left over from evolution. Rather, they are important defensive capabilities evolution has bestowed upon us. Second, infections occur because humans lose in the race against microorganisms. Infections are caused by pathogenic microorganisms such as salmonella, causing enteritis. Humans have developed strong defensive capabilities through evolution, but microorganisms also evolve and they reproduce much faster than humans, often taking the lead in the arms race between infection and immunity. And authors use the metaphor of foxes and rabbits to describe the relationship between humans and pathogenic microorganisms. So, if the fox runs fast, only rabbits faster than the fox can survive. After the slow rabbits are all eaten, only the fast ones remain. Thus, the foxes that can't catch the new rabbits will starve, and only faster foxes can survive. The situation between humans and pathogenic microorganisms is similar. Only those who successfully resist microbial invasion get to reproduce. We're all descendants of survivors today, each with strong immunity. But microorganisms also need to reproduce, and they multiply much faster than humans, often developing cleverer ways to bypass our immune systems and leave offspring. In this arms race, humans are like desperately fleeing rabbits, always seeking stronger defenses. Pathogenic microorganisms are like foxes hunting rabbits. Only the most cunning succeed. Of course, this is just a theoretical threat. We can't recreate that evolutionary process today. But we can see the arms race intensity in antibiotics cases. Take Staphylococcus, a common pathogen. In 1941, penicillin killed all staph, but by 1944, penicillin-resistant strains emerged. Today, 95% of staph strains have some penicillin resistance. Under antibiotic assault, weak staphylococci were eliminated, while mutant survivors upgraded defenses against penicillin. Here, pathogens defend while human-invented antibiotics attack. The endless arms race ensures evolution can't permanently solve infections. Crucially, microbes reproduce much faster than humans, meaning higher mutation rates and more strategies to try. We get sick not because human evolution is inadequate, but because microbes evolve faster and find new invasion methods more easily. Third, many modern diseases occur because the human body hasn't adapted to new environments. Our bodies formed in ancient grasslands and remain poorly adapted to modern environments, like readily available junk food. Sedentary lifestyles at desks, inactivity, high blood pressure, diabetes, lumbar muscle strain. These modern diseases all stem from new environments. Why do new environments threaten our bodies? Humans endured the long Stone Age, an era of extreme scarcity where sugary or fatty foods were rare and malnutrition was a lifelong threat. Harsh environments forced us to seize every opportunity to intake nutrients. When lucky enough to find sugary fruits, honey, or fatty meats, we'd feast heartily, storing these hard-won nutrients to survive lean times. This was evolution's survival strategy in difficult environments. But this adaptation causes major problems in environments filled with gummy bears and chocolate cakes. Today, we consume fats and sugars far exceeding physiological needs. Yet our Stone Age taste preferences haven't adapted, still irresistibly drawn to these substances. After millions of years craving them, this taste environment mismatch traps modern people in obesity and diabetes while they struggle to resist. There's another problem. Evolution requires brutal natural selection to work. As medical technology advances, genes maladapted to new environments persist rather than being eliminated. This undoubtedly hinders evolutionary mechanisms. Humans adapt slowly to new environments, but pathogens perform much better. Take Legionnaire's disease, pneumonia caused by Legionella bacteria, rarely contagious between people. Originally hard to spread widely, it can infect humans through water mist. With cars, water tanks, and central air conditioning, Legionella found perfect habitats, becoming new threats. In summary, our bodies were shaped over millions of years of primitive life. Natural selection hasn't had time to remake our bodies for high sugar and fat diets. nor for cars, air conditioning, crowded subways, or cramped office cubicles, hence many modern diseases arise. Fourth, many disease-causing genes are lucky escapees of natural selection. While evolution eliminates inferior genes and preserves superior ones, its selection criterion is reproduction, not survival. So genes that don't hinder reproduction get preserved. First, let's discuss how evolution screens genes. The authors give the example of British moths. During Britain's Industrial Revolution, London's coal pollution was severe. Light moths and soot-blackened trees were easily eaten by birds, while a rare dark mutant species blended in and avoided predation. As trees darkened, the dark mutation spread rapidly, replacing light moths as the dominant population. But this creates a false impression that evolution favors survival-optimizing genes. Actually, survival itself isn't crucial, like annual wildflowers that die after one reproduction, or male mantises who risk death to mate. Genes don't aim for individual survival, but group reproduction. Only genes useful for reproduction endure, even if reproduction threatens individual survival. As biologist Dawkins said, individuals are vehicles genes create to copy themselves, disposable after use, meaning humans are tools for genes. Thus, if diseases, depression, gout, nearsightedness, heart attacks, strokes, cancer don't affect reproduction, their genes persist through generations. Huntington's disease perfectly illustrates genes prioritizing reproduction. This severe genetic disorder causes memory loss and muscle twitching, with origins tracing to 17th century European families. Why wasn't this destructive gene eliminated by evolution? Now, the answer's simple. Symptoms usually appear only after age 40, meaning before showing destruction, the gene has already spread through reproduction to the next generation. Another question, what does most suitable even mean for genes? Look how humans themselves interpret suitable differently. Which genes are more suitable? Gold medal athletes or Nobel-winning scientists? Actually, there's no inherent suitable when examining a gene in isolation. Only when genes are compared in specific environments does survival of the fittest gain meaning. Suppose a gene makes rabbits more timid, helping them avoid foxes. But during harsh winters, these timid rabbits starve, too scared to forage. So the same gene can have opposite effects in different environments. Recall our sugar-craving gene, advantageous in ancient scarcity, but in modern abundance, it's the culprit behind obesity and diabetes. Therefore, we can summarize gene characteristics. First, genes care about reproduction, not survival. Second, gene adaptability only makes sense in specific contexts. Fifth, some seemingly anti-human designs are evolutionary compromises. The human body isn't perfect. When facing two bad options, evolution chooses the lesser harm. Sickle cell anemia exemplifies this, a severe genetic disorder where defective genes produce crescent-shaped red blood cells, causing acute anemia. Patients rarely live past 40, but sickle cells have unexpected advantage, strong malaria resistance. Thus, in malaria-ravaged Africa, sickle cells became an evolutionary advantage. To resist malaria parasites, genes compromised between disease and defense, using this destroy enemy while damaging self approach by deforming red blood cells. Human infants' helplessness is another compromise result. Compared to other primates, human babies are born underdeveloped. Nothing like foals standing at birth, because human heads are too large while the female pelvic opening is too small, making childbirth particularly dangerous. To minimize childbirth risks, humans evolved to give birth earlier before infant skulls fully harden. Actually, we're all premature babies, not evolutionary mistakes, but carefully weighed compromises. The author emphasizes looking beyond apparent flaws to see hidden benefits. Sixth, many design flaws may be historical baggage. Evolution can't overhaul designs but accumulates tiny changes. Each minor change must provide clear benefits to persist, making historical problems hard to resolve. Take throat structure. Our mouth sits below nostrils, but in neck-chest, the esophagus passes behind the windpipe. This forces airway and food passage to cross at the throat, sharing the same channel. If food blocks this junction, air can't reach lungs, causing choking deaths. Why does the throat have this vulnerability? Is there a special reason for this strange structure? None whatsoever. The throat structure is historical baggage with no functional purpose. Life originated in oceans. Throats formed gradually during gill to lung evolution. If designed like modern engineering, our lung-centered system wouldn't look like this. But evolution builds while designing, making small tweaks to existing structures without comprehensive planning. Thus, despite respiratory systems vastly differing from fish, we inherit gill-breathing legacy. This bizarre throat design. Another example, the retinal blind spot where optic nerves pass through, lacking light-sensitive cells. So images falling here remain invisible, easily confirmed by simple experiment. Close left eye, focus right eye on pencil tip ahead. Move pencil right without eye tracking. At approximately 20 degrees right, it disappears. Do the same experiment with your left eye, and you'll find the same result at about 20 degrees to the left. This visual blind spot starts with the evolution of the eyeball. One distant ancestor of humans in the evolutionary tree was a small, transparent, bony creature with light-sensitive cells under its transparent skin, and our eyes evolved from those cells. In ancient times, the blood vessels and nerves supplying those cells were on the outside. For a transparent body, having blood vessels and nerves outside wasn't a problem. But in the process of vertebrates evolving eyes, genes had little incentive to change this design. This spot where the optic nerve passes through has evolved into the blind spot on our retina today. Such evolutionary historical baggage could fill a long list. For example, the lumbar spine is easily injured in upright walking. The large head makes it vulnerable to fatal injuries, and wisdom teeth that grow in adulthood often cause cheek swelling and difficulty eating. In summary, evolution involves only trial and error with constant patching. In the game of survival, each generation accumulates minor changes, and only those beneficial for reproduction are retained. This is a relatively slow process, and sometimes it goes astray. That's the author's explanation of disease causes from 6 aspects. After understanding these, you might ask, what does this mean for our personal health maintenance? The authors admit that evolutionary medicine can't answer this question, but that doesn't mean it's meaningless. In fact, it's through studying evolutionary medicine that we've gained deeper insights into many diseases and thus found more targeted treatments. For example, the attitude towards fever mentioned earlier. Without evolutionary medicine's insights, we wouldn't recognize fever as the body's defense against bacterial invasion, and we might have gone further down the wrong path. For individuals, through evolutionary medicine, we can at least understand why we evolved this way and why we're vulnerable to certain diseases. Diseases don't happen randomly. Their root cause lies in natural selection. The paradox here is that while suffering from certain diseases, humans also gain various benefits. For example, the ability to feel pain is itself a defense mechanism, and a strong immune system can lead to autoimmune diseases. Mutated red blood cells can precisely combat certain pathogenic microorganisms. Within these paradoxical antinomies, we can perceive the significance of evolution. As the author concludes at the book's end, without the light of evolution, all medical problems remain incomprehensible. So why do we get sick? That concludes our interpretation of this book for you. The reading notes are below the audio. We'll see you tomorrow.